Review for No Country for Old Men with all of our technical difficulties. And so, welcome to the review, guys. We are doing No Country for Old Men today, and it's Ariana's first time having seen it. One of my all-time favorite movies. So tell us, Ariana, what'd you think of No Country for Old Men?
I really enjoyed it.
You did?
I really enjoyed it because I liked the dynamic of like the cat, the cat, the mouse, and then like the cheese, essentially. You know what I mean? There's always like a 3-step part going. And it was also really cool, just like everyone's different motives too. Like that was awesome, and how it's set up too. Like I love the opening monologue and also what's crazy is though, it almost sets you up to think that like Llewelyn is the one giving that first opening monologue kind of sort of thing, but then it's totally obviously Tommy Lee Jones, who is the tits. I was so excited when he shows up because he shows up so much later too. So I was like, I knew nothing about it going in either. So I really loved that, and like the serial killer aspect of it, or like, and then like whatever, like the cartel, but then like the bankers are involved, and I'm like, this is elaborate.
Yeah, right. So, for such a simple story, it goes through so many layers of people involved, from all the way to the top to the bottom. You know,
it's crazy. Right. But I liked it. I enjoyed it.
That's awesome.
It was good.
Well, let's get into it then. Speaking of that opening monologue you're talking about, I took some notes. I love that opening monologue, and I think, you know, part of the point of it, it does 5 things at once, but, you know, 'cause it sets the tone, it sets the mood, it sets up the kind of rural Texas in 1980. It sets up one of the protagonists, and then while he's talking about his concerns about how things have changed, it's establishing also the exact evil that he's worried about, and then we get to meet that evil with Anton. Like, Anton's the first guy we see on screen, although not being, like, the main character, right?
Right.
So just some snippets basically from it. In essence, what he's talking about is his concern about how, like, you know, he's giving you, and it's what the title comes from, is this like, it's No Country for Old Men. It's like, you know, back in the day, this older guy, you know, he's thinking of like Andy Griffith's show, you know, it's like what his town was, and it's like, you know, Big Bob Jr., whatever, he didn't even carry a gun, and now I had to send a 15-year-old to the electric chair. He had killed a girl, said he knew he was going to hell and be there in 15 minutes. It's like, what do I do with this? You know, a man would have to, he's like, it's not that I'm afraid, I just don't want to, you know, get involved in something I don't understand. A man would have to put his soul at hazard. A man would have to say, okay, I'll be a part of this world. And leading that into Anton, I just think is such a perfect way to kind of show the tension in the movie.
Because also, I don't know if it just didn't click for me in the very beginning, because I think it took me a little bit longer to realize it wasn't set present day of when this was being shot.
It doesn't make it obvious right away.
No, it doesn't. So when you look at it, and then when they're saying, like, what... You realize that Anton or Chigurh, you realize he's a serial killer pretty, like, early on, I feel like. If you know anything about true crime or anything else or how it works, like, you can see, like, he's kind of... And, like, you see when he makes the clerk flip the coin.
Yes, that's a great
scene. He has a code he follows. Most serial killers do have a code or a pattern that they have to follow. You know, they have... morals, they're just not our morals.
Well, we play that game of when do you call a hitman a serial killer? What's the difference, you know? And
I think, and honestly, let's be real, that scene in the story completely establishes it.
I would argue there never has been a difference. I think all hitmen are serial killers.
I don't think that.
Okay.
I think it's a desensitization, because you're getting because here's the thing, it can be, it monetarily is weighed when you're a hitman. There is nothing to gain except for the pure enjoyment of killing someone as a serial killer. Think about it. You're getting something out of being a hitman. You might have a lower sense of empathy, and you might be able to go out and do that, but that doesn't make you a serial killer.
Well, I would bet that if we were to make a sample size of all hitmen, there would be the ones who pretty much
there's definitely going to be a level of personality disorder there, because it takes a certain type of personality to do that.
Yeah.
But a sociopath doesn't have to be a serial killer, and a serial killer doesn't have to be a sociopath. So therefore, this is way unnecessary of an intro.
I think that there's a spectrum, basically, of
I see what you're saying.
You could take hitmen that if you push them all the way to the right, they would be the ones who, like, I only just kill for the money, I just kill the one guy I have to. And then there's the ones you can push all the way to the left who are like, I would be doing this for free, and I'm also getting paid. And I think Anton finds himself further along on that.
I would say so too.
Because he is a gun for hire. We can't pretend he's not a hitman.
Oh no, that he clearly is. No, I'm not saying saying that. I'm just saying, like, it's not just more like they even say throughout, it's like, the difference is like, he's gonna kill you regardless. Like, Woody Harrelson's character even says that.
Well, the good foil is Woody Harrelson.
Yeah.
Those two do find themselves a little bit on different ends of the spectrum.
Yeah.
Woody Harrelson does not come across like the guy who, if you see him, it's probably your ass.
Right.
Where it's like, maybe the majority of people that we ever see on screen with Anton do die.
Yeah, 100%. Except for, like, the coin clip. The
then,
coin
like you
flip.
said,
Jeez,
you were talking about his kind of, sense of code. So let's dig into that gas station scene, because it is an unbelievably good scene. It establishes that he sees himself as basically like a force of nature. Like, he's the Grim Reaper.
Absolutely.
And he sets up something that gets paid off towards the end with Carla Jean, is that the
Carla Jean. Mm-hmm.
And so he explains that, he pulls out that coin. And it's not only that he just likes coins as a coin flip, for the 50-50. Again, very huge nihilistic themes in this movie. But it connects also to this idea that he's like, this coin has traveled for 20 years to get to you. Like, and then he tells Carla, I got here the same way the coin did. Mm-hmm. So it's like, he sees himself as like this agent of the universe. It's like, it's not me. I'm not choosing to do whatever. It's like, just you happen to, this was kismet. This was, the universe has decided that it's your day to die. And the same way too, where he's like, call it, and he's like, well, I didn't put nothing up, and he's like, yes, you did, you've been putting it up your whole life. And I think that he has a philosophy that everyone is putting it up their whole life,
that.
and that just one day you're going to run into the Reaper, and that's your day, and this coin found you the same way it found me. And even in so of him talking to Harrelson when he kills him, and he's like, how useful is the rule to you if this is where it led you? It's kind of like, it's the same, this system. It's like, you almost have no control.
Right.
So I was very impressed with them building this kind of philosophy around him. Okay, well, so yeah, what are you going to say?
No, I completely second that, but it's like, but he sees himself outside of it too. So, like, he thinks so for him to say I don't know. It's hard. It's just a really intense, like, just personality storyline for just him in general.
I think a cool thing that Coen Brothers do is that he breaks his own rule.
Yeah.
I think he's full of shit.
Absolutely.
And I like that. I think it's better that he's full of shit.
Because then it's obviously too, because then there's just, clearly yet again, though, a personality disorder within that, because you can't even overcome your own narcissism to make your theory work out.
Well, he kills those first two guys in the beginning. There's no coin flip thing. No, what did they even do? So I think absolutely that he has this idea that, like, oh, I'm this agent of the universe or whatever, but then when he like wants to kill someone, he does. I think the best example where that really comes to a head, and that's why I said it kind of pays off with Carla, is I think she's the one who pushes back.
Right.
And so this whole time he's been able to play a stupid coin game with people, and she's like, no, I'm not going to call it. There is no coin. Like, it's just you. And I think she's right. And I think
agree.
that little look on his face for a second, like he's surprised, I think he really, like, he can't admit
because she wasn't
yet.
Do it,
but she got him. It's like, yeah, 100%. Motherfucker. Like, no, your whole little philosophy is bullshit to make you feel better that you're like, there's something better about you.
Yet again, just you following your own code or whatever.
And just being a psycho.
Yeah. And that's what you are.
Which I love that. I think it's very cool that we set up a character.
Yeah, it was really good.
He has his own headcanon about what he does, but then we do have another character who...
Yeah, go ahead. No, you continue.
Just Carla and Llewelyn both represent people who I think he would see himself as better than.
Oh, absolutely.
Both of them end up showing to be of great quality.
And he thought it was going to be, I think they really... He didn't realize the type of fight that Llewelyn was going to put up.
Absolutely.
And what's crazy to me is, which I loved about that whole story is, because when you watch it, and that's why I think I was so quick to think that he had been the cop speaking in the beginning a little bit.
Okay.
Because he just, like, his tactics overall, I was just like, I think at one point I questioned, I was like, what do you do? You're not just a, it was Nom. Once Woody, like, reveals it clearly, but it's like, you're not some petty criminal. You know what I mean? Like, you've taken so many of the right steps that this shouldn't, like.
I'm glad you brought that up, because he's also not really a criminal.
No.
He's a normal person who has landed on a crime of opportunity.
Oh, absolutely.
And I think that this is interesting as well, because you having seen just this in Fargo now, I think he's a really interesting comparison to Jerry Lundegaard.
Yeah.
Jerry Lundegaard has the sin of wanting more and trying to, like, make a thing happen from scratch to be in a better station.
Yeah, absolutely.
Llewelyn Moss is a man who just stumbles upon it. And I think that it gets echoed a little bit when about the midway point of the movie, he starts hitchhiking and the black guy picks him up and gives him a little bit of a magical Negro wisdom, but he says, you shouldn't be doing that.
Right.
And eventually, he says, hitchhiking, but like really the first thing you hear is just, you shouldn't be doing that. And it's like, you shouldn't have picked up that case.
Yeah. That was the thing though too. It's like, because he followed it, he knew what he to a certain degree, he knew where he was ending up and what he was going to end up with. He followed the tracks. He didn't touch the drugs. He didn't touch anything else. He's like, there's got to be one man standing throughout this, like, scenario of what it looks like. So what it looks
Ultimo hombre.
Yeah, that's what it looks like, too, is like they just got into a firefight over who's actually taking this money because it's all going wrong, and it's shady. It's the 80s,
I want to dig into that scene because that's one of my favorite scenes.
So that's crazy too. So when he goes and so that's why I was confused though too, because I'm thinking this guy's eventually going to the cops, right? Like, because he had to have known there was a bigger payoff to go up to track where the last man standing was. He had to have known or something, or just followed his gut feeling as a tracker or as a hunter. Or
well, whatever. I think he figured the whole thing out. That's why I think it's so cool about the scene is. Yeah. A million other directors would have had some dumb scene. If you want to establish that someone's a badass, it would have been like he walks in a bar and someone wants to fight him and someone else goes, hey, no, that's Llewelyn Moss. He's a badass. Right. They show us completely instead. And a whole scene that has like no music. It's just the wind.
Yeah.
And it's him just talking to himself periodically. And we are learning what he already knows through him explaining it. And it's beautiful because the way it specifically breaks down is like, if you want to start as far back as the dog, okay, where's the dog coming from? Okay, great. Now I've seen the shootout. So he goes in there because he has an idea of what that was probably over. First thing he finds is all the heroin. So it's like, okay, yeah. So I'm just thinking heroin, but he's thinking cash because this was probably a transfer.
Right.
So then he sees that everyone's dead, runs into the one Mexican who's dying in the car, and he's worried about the wolves. And so he's asking him, like, Ultimo hombre, that must have been the last man. And you're like, yeah, why would you care? And then it's like, and so he thinks to himself, okay, well, if I leave, I go back the same way I came from. So he starts tracking back from where the tracks are taking him. Then he ends up in the middle of the sun, and he's like, okay, if I do take a break, I'm going to stop in the shade. Right. So then he looks for trees, and you're like, oh, genius. And then sure enough, he goes and sees the guy's boots. So then he's like, okay, well, you're probably going to turn around and shoot my dumb ass. But then he gives it some time with his watch. You don't know what he's doing. Then you realize, oh, he's waiting to see if the guy moved after like an hour, and he never moved, so he's probably dead. So now he approaches, bam, finds the guy, opens the case, there's the money. Right. And for me, the first time watching the movie, I didn't even know what he was looking for until he finally opened the case. And I was like, oh, of course. Like, he figured out right away. The dude is actually highly capable. So that's such a cool way to establish how badass our main character is. Right. And that he potentially could compete with the spider, basically, who exists in this universe. I like how someone had put it, that Anton's like a spider where everyone's caught in his web. So when he's in that scene with the cop after he gets pulled over and then he kills him with the thing or whatever, the way they shoot that scene isn't from his POV. It's like we're seeing it from the fly. He's on the phone. He's like, yeah, I got it all under control. But in the background, kind of out of focus, you see him stand up. It's like, it's so creepy.
It is so creepy. He plays that part so well because he literally is just everything you would expect from just a stone cold killer. Yes. You know what I mean? It's just everything's very precise. Yes. Everything's very calculated. He's just on a path. Very little emotion is shown, period.
Until it is, which I also think is good. Because that's the thing. He comes across kind of like, a supernatural being. But the movie actually does a lot of energy. It puts a lot of energy into trying to remind you that he is human. Absolutely. And by just him getting shot when they're when he's in the truck too. Like that, because they didn't have to, he didn't have to get hit there, but making it does. It establishes him after going through and having to fix himself. He pays almost every time. Even when he strangles that cop, he goes and has to clean off his wrist because his wrists are all fucked up. So he does get messed up. But also emotionally, I think that it gets super personal for him after a while, So it's like he can pretend like that he's this, bastion of oh, I don't care, it's just this system I have, whatever. But he wants out Llewelyn's ass.
Yeah, because he was able to elude him for so long. And the fact he's like, this doesn't happen to me. He's like, I will get this.
Yeah, right. Dishonored him,
he says to
Carla.
What's this? What's Woody Harrelson's character's name?
I completely forgot. He's got an interesting
Cooper.
name.
It's not Cooper. Something like that. I don't know. Colonel. He was Carson. That's what it is. And
Carson Wells, maybe.
It was Carson Wells. Yeah. But I think it's crazy that he just sits there and says no, it will come to me. It will be brought to me. Whatever.
But that's another good part. He's wrong.
He's wrong.
It doesn't get brought to his feet.
It does
so
not.
That's good too. But again, that confidence, that part, and then that's another spider shot. Carson's walking up the hotel
and he's coming up behind him.
Oh, so creepy. And just the tension in that scene of him just with the shotgun on him and Carson breaking down and just being like, you don't have to do this.
You don't have to do this.
You realize how crazy you are? He's
like, you mean what I said? No, you. Not the situation, you.
The blocking is really great in that shot too, because it's shot where it's close-ups of them and they're the two main characters, and when the phone rings, it now switches to where the phone is now the character and he is in Anton and Carson's off screen, so now we know you're done. The camera has decided you are no longer important and you're gone. And I also want to bring this up too, so we can get to an important thing at the end. Obviously, a huge thing that happens in the movie, Llewelyn Moss just dies off screen, which is insane because we set up the gunfight of the century, right?
Right.
They have a really cool gunfight at like, the third mark, two-third, or halfway mark. He goes to Mexico. He ends up on a phone call with Anton, and that was a very good, creepy phone call as well. But he decides, like, you know what? Like, I got a plan for you. I'm going to make you a special project of mine. So now we think this is when Arnold Schwarzenegger goes out and builds
exactly.
And he has to go fight the Predator. Like, that's what we're waiting for. And it gets completely subverted. There's plenty to say about just the choice that they chose to even do that.
Yeah.
Which I guess I can get into in a minute, but I just want to bring up real fast that I think that the movie is also kind of hinting at this happening for a long time. He goes and shoots the buck in the beginning and never goes and tracks down that buck. That buck just dies off screen. Carson there is talking to him, same thing. It's like Carson isn't like in the big focus. He just basically gets shot kind of off screen. Oh, yeah. So then when he goes to the hotel towards the end and he's talking to the lady and he's like, oh, I don't want to cheat or whatever. I'm already got a wife, and she's like, hey, what are you looking for? And he's like, oh, just what's coming. And she's like, oh, no one ever sees that.
Right.
So I just think the movie's kind of letting you know, like, hey,
absolutely.
Be prepared.
This is about to, for sure.
And that's why I think the movie, like, one of its big tenet themes is basically cosmological nihilism. I think it's this idea that the universe isn't keeping track and not every story turns into this picturesque kind of thing. And one of the good parallels for that, too, is that first off, you probably noticed that, like, Llewelyn and Anton get paralleled often. It's like almost every time, like, Llewelyn kills an animal, like, Anton kills a person. It goes back and forth a lot, but one of the really cool ones is Llewelyn goes to Mexico, and he's the protagonist. He's a good guy. He runs into these kids, and the kids are total assholes to him.
Oh, yeah.
And they want a whole bunch of money for, like, helping him. And they ask what happened to him. They're like, were you in a car accident? And he's like, yeah, I was in a car accident. Anton does get in a car accident at the end. He's the super bad guy, and he runs in the two most delightful little boys you'd ever meet. So again, it's like the universe isn't keeping track.
No,
there's no karmic justice that's like
when the guy's like, how much are you gonna pay for the beer? Shut up, bro.
Yeah, no, 100%.
Go away.
So annoying. Yeah, so annoying. And then the kids at the end, he's like, some of that money's mine. He's like, you got my shirt.
Yeah, he's like, but you didn't even use another shirt, and I still don't have one.
Like, that bone sticking out of his goddamn arm.
Yeah. So bad, man.
But back to the title, though, it's like, I think, because that's one of the things that's kind of like, what is it, if nihilism then what is it all about? What's the point? I think part of what helped me reframe this movie as a whole is seeing... It feels at first like Llewelyn Moss is the main character.
Right.
I think Tommy Lee Jones is the
absolutely.
main character. I think he's the only one who changes and, has to struggle with this internal setup that he sets up in the first monologue.
Yeah.
And I think he's almost like a man who is here to bear witness to an opera that's playing out before him, that he's always kind of one step behind.
I do not disagree with that at all.
Between these two men who don't change, and one just dies and one just gets away. And the big... scene that's probably like the most important like catalyst scene or climax scene is him talking to his half brother or step brother or something like that with the cats, and them going through where he's like, kind of saying like, I'm quitting, everything sucks, blah blah blah, things are not how they were, and he tells this story about basically our great granddaddy or whatever got murdered, like gunned down in the middle of nowhere, like this was like 100 years ago. You're full of shit, man.
Like it's always been like this. The game has always been changing. You're just finding it harder to keep up with the changing of the game because you're getting older within it. It's not
Let's go back to Roman slaves.
Yeah, exactly.
It's always been bad.
It's always been bad. It's not a new game. You're just becoming too old to play, essentially. Well, or not necessarily too old to play, but...
Well, your perspective is wrong, It's like he said, literally, it's vanity. He's like, it's not all waiting on you. Like, you don't get to have this small little idea how things should be.
Right.
And when they don't fit that anymore, all of a sudden, it's like, oh, well, everything's just like, no. It's been like this, you know? And those guys were brave, and you got to be brave, and
sure.
I really like it. It instantly makes the whole movie make sense to me, because before, when I first saw it, I was like, man, that ending is so weird. It's like just our hero dies and the bad guy gets away. Like, what was the point of all this? And it's like, oh, because it's not from their perspective. Like, they are, like I said, kind of like an opera that is playing out in front of the character who does need to see things differently.
Absolutely.
Again, towards the ending as well, I just think that whole Carla scene is so good. I think another setup payoff thing that they do that's interesting is Anton is very particular about getting blood on his boots multiple times.
And when he comes out and he wipes his boots off after
what lets you know
he shot Carla.
What happened.
Yeah, and I was like, and I watched that and I was just like, you know what, that was... You did that because you knew you had, like, it was out of spite almost too, and I think
she got him.
I think she got him. I think it was a quick anger reaction versus him, because he talks that first scene with the store clerk, he completely talks him into, you will call this. You're gonna call it. You play to a fear. You know what I mean? Yeah. So, like, you know, after, when she got him, what else? Like, you were so trigger happy really fast because your not feelings were hurt, but, like, a little bit.
Well, I think it's kind of she challenges everything I believe about myself. If I do walk out of here and she continues to live, I may not be able to go on with the worldview that I have. Like, this person basically has to go at this point for me to be able to try to continue to live in the worldview that I have. But I think that the things that she said to him will probably never leave him.
Oh, no, not at all.
And I think that's so powerful because no one up to that point in that movie has been able to call him on his bullshit. And they almost seem to kind of believe the mysticism about him as well. I think Carson's a great example. I think Carson believes that he's as badass as he really is, you know? So it just works. Let me see if I just have a couple little tidbits here because the movie's just filled with freaking tidbits. I also think a lot of the humor really works in the movie, like when Llewelyn goes to the clothing store twice and you get a lot of people in here who aren't wearing hitman. No, that's unusual.
I'm not gonna lie, is annoying and like why Llewelyn gets caught in the end anyway, but like Carla's mom,
she's so great.
She's so great. Like honestly, like the comedic relief her character alone gives in this. When she's like, I have the cancer, it's hot, I don't know where we're going. And it's like, you're the last gentleman left in Texas. Oh no, honey, never seen a Mexican in a suit before. Like, no.
I love my favorite joke with her is when she says, what do you call it? They're saying, she's on the phone, Carla. Yeah. And she's like, you're hurt. And he's like, no. And she's like, I can hear it in your voice. And she's like, that's falseness in his voice. So good.
That is such a great character.
My God, it's so
and unexpected good. For that, like, plot movement too, you know, like that's what she's got.
And how
great.
Dark everything has been up to this point too, right?
Yeah, because it doesn't hold the same amount of humor as Fargo does by any means, but that's because it's not like
it's
slapstick.
It's really not a it's not a like black comedy, dramedy kind of thing. It's really more of a straight drama. But the Coen brothers, like, you'd be hard pressed to find any of their movies that don't have at least one or two like pretty good funny lines. There's a couple of quotes I have in here too that I kind of want to go over that I just think are so good. I love how Tommy Lee Jones speaks. He has such an interesting way of talking. So when they go out there to investigate what happened with the shootout and stuff, first off, again, these are people that other movie grammar would have told us are just bumpkins, and visually we're getting that they're all just a bunch of bumpkins and that they're in over their head. But the two cops are actually very good at their job. Yeah. The same thing with like Margie. They do the same tactic of just showing this person who seems unassuming, but they're so good at what they do. Right. They instantly figure out like this was a shootout. These guys are fresher than those guys, so they must have come back. Someone else must have shot them. He must have got away. Blah blah. And I like how the younger cop is like, oh well, you know, maybe there may not have been any money at all. And he's like, yeah, maybe. And he's like, yeah, but you don't believe that, do you? And he's like, no, probably I don't. I love probably I don't. Like he's got such a specific way of talking. I think that's so great. And then them going into like the trailer where Llewelyn lives. Just that whole scene is so good of this like him putting together like he was just here. Right. And you know, the glass of milk or whatever. And he's like, oh, that's frustrating. We got to circulate this. He's like, what do we circulate? Person who has just drunk milk? Yeah, exactly. Like, we have nothing based off that, But then him looking into the TV and just that, like, it's like their souls. It's like, you know, I'm looking into where he has I kind of like how that comes back to play 10, too, because when he goes and sits in the hotel at the end. Yes. Because he picked the right hotel room to go into versus the wrong one, per se. Flip of the coin there. No, totally agree. Yeah, the whole reflection thing is so good. And then establishing as well that Anton must have absconded with the money after they found his body because then they have the little coin on the floor. And it's like, okay, that's the little trick that we've established that he knows how to do that. That's another big thing, too. Like, sound design is so good in this movie. That scene where he does kill all the Mexicans, him just, like, taking off his boots and like, walking up slowly and having the weird silent shotgun that has such a weird sound. Flies in the movie are all super loud. Oh, yeah, they're so loud. Because, again, there's like 16 minutes of music in like the whole 2 hour because there's not it's just all the I think it helps so much for the tension building of just kind of being there and kind of stressed out from what's happening. The movie's killer. I will just real quick. So one last thing. Another thing I really love is, again, establishing Tommy Lee Jones as a badass in his character. And I guess we also need to talk about his exit. But we see the pig sticker that Anton is using earlier in the film, and everyone else doesn't understand what kind of weapon does the thing that it does. I love the reveal of how they choose to show us that they have figured it out.
Oh, yes.
By him talking to
Carla.
Jean.
It was really good.
That was so clever to have it not be like, oh, hey, we figured out what his gun was. It's this. It's like, no, it's just
like
him.
He talks himself through it.
Well, I think also he found out before he talked to her, so he knows in between.
See, I thought it was her, like him, like actually saying it out loud and getting it there. You know what I mean? And him connect, because I was like, I was like, oh, or you have, because I knew that's where it was going. Yeah. Anyway, when it was talking, because you know what I mean? Like, once I, like, realized what he was speaking about.
I won't say that interpretation's wrong, but the one I get is that he has since somehow figured it out in between off screen. So then when he's talking to her...
And he's just like, he's more rambling and just like, this is how this little information ties back in.
And he's also not really... I mean, he is telling her a story for a reason. I know later he's like, what was I saying? Because he was potentially lying. Yeah. But what he's trying to say is that, like, there is no certain thing, which is true for Llewelyn and for Anton. They both think of things as, like, if I put my mind to it, I'm going to
accomplish it.
He will bring that case to my feet. That's for certain. And like, they're both wrong. One dies, one gets effed up in a car accident and has to go get the case, you know? And he's saying, like, even in a contest between a man and steer, isn't
exactly. Nothing is certain. Yeah, I agree. Yeah,
so that's what he's getting across with her specifically, which is cool. But I still just love that, like, they don't have some lame scene or someone just goes like, oh, sir, we figured it out. It's one of those pig stickers. It's like, no, it's just him being like, you know how they kill a steer? Like, I just think that's so good. I just thought it was just really killer. We've got to get into the ending with Tommy Lee Jones. And because he's the last character, he signs off in the movie. I think that also gives us the feeling of him being the main character as well. It's like
absolutely.
Start and end with him.
Yeah.
So this is... I'm curious about this because I don't have solid answers. How do you interpret his dreams? I know you probably don't remember them verbatim, but like, did you have a just feeling?
Oh, for his second dream? I mean, it's like, he's like, you saw your dad? You know, like once you are done with this life, he'll be there to meet you on the other side. For just to be, general about it. That was my takeaway.
So the first dream, if I recall, is the really short one where I think he says something.
He lost money or something.
I think he says his dad let him like borrow money. I think I lost it. Thinking about it, for having much more time to think about it than you, I think what he's maybe getting at, and again, it's Coen brothers, they're so much smarter than me.
Right.
I won't just be able to detail all of it, you know, but it makes me think maybe he's talking about that sense of like, my dad has instilled me with this like duty of being a police officer and what my lot in life is going to be, and I think I lost it. And so I wonder if that's what he's getting at, you know?
That's cool.
And then for the second one, it's a longer story. I also thought it really hit me that when he says how like his dad died like in his 30s or something, and
he's like, I'm an older man by 20 years. Yeah.
I don't know why that really.
Me too.
I think about that.
Yeah, I like have goosebumps right now, like talking about it, like because it's like, oh wow, because like in retrospect, like I'm the older man here, even though, and I was like, God,
no, it's so true. It's so weird, so haunting, you know. And so, but he's saying how like, he goes up there with the horn with the fire, and I knew he was waiting up there for me, and I agree, like waiting for you on the other side. But I also kind of almost feel like it's also a matter of like, it's not yet. Like you don't need to call on your chips yet. Yeah. So like, I'll be there and I'm waiting for you, but it's because that's why I went up ahead.
Right. Absolutely.
You're not following me, lockstep, because it's not time for you to like call it a day yet, which is what he kind of seems to have been wanting to do. I did find it an interesting choice that they chose to have him still retire.
Right.
You've seen Seven, right?
Yes.
And that's the one where at the end, that's what they kind of do with Morgan Freeman, is that he changes his mind. The whole point of the movie is that he wants to retire. And then at the end of the movie, they're like, hey, where are you going to be? And he's like, I'll be around. And so that's how you traditionally would do that. It's
so blurry for me, though.
It was probably a while ago. It's a
really long. Like I feel like I've never seen. I haven't. You know what? I have never seen the actual full film. I've only ever seen it on TMT or AMC.
That's rough. Yeah.
Because it was on a repeat for like a minute, when I was in high school.
It's a very intense.
So I feel like I haven't seen it. I don't think I've ever seen like an actual cut of just the original film.
Okay.
I don't think I have.
Fair enough. Well, but that's
I know the premise of it, but
Well, but that's just what I mean is like, another director would have done it like that. So they would have done the guy wants to quit and then he sees something different, gets a new perspective, decides not to quit.
Right.
I thought it was very interesting that he does still. So it's kind of like, okay, so what are they saying with that? So that's, that ending, I still wrestle with it today. Yeah. But that's part of why I think Coen Brother movies are good, is because you can be like, wow, that was so good. And you can still wrestle with it like years and years after having seen it.
So. Oh, the car crash, like literally, I felt like I was going to have a heart attack. That came out of nowhere for me. And but I felt it was going to come because I was like watching the light. but it was like the light's still green, nothing's changed, there's no reason.
The other guy actually ran the red.
Yeah. And that caught me off guard. Like, I was like,
part of why that's so powerful or catches you off guard so much as well, it's really cool, is again my 100 other directors test I always use. 100 other directors, everyone shoots that shot from the other side.
Yeah.
It is always from the driver's side in, looking through the passenger side, seeing the car coming.
Yeah.
They shot it the super boring visual way, but then you don't know what the hell's happening. You didn't know what was happening at all. Rather than try to have you do the moment where you go, oh my God, instead it was, what the fuck just happened? Yeah,
like, it was like in my ears so quick, and I was like, ah!
Yeah, so loud, so effective. Him get out, again, homie's mortal, you know. Yeah. He's tough as nails, but he's definitely mortal. It's just, man, I mean, seriously, I feel like I could talk about like every scene for a half an hour.
It's good.
So good. The pacing, I mean, like we didn't even really get into the gunfight between Llewelyn Moss and Anton, but I think that whole thing is so clever of just how it's shot. Never really knowing where Anton is, so it kind of, again, it heightens that reality of feeling like he's Batman, like he's just, and it also in the almost walls.
Like, and you don't realize he was actually even part of that gunfight at first either. Because they have the Mexican, it could have just been the cartel, because especially the way they set it up, it's literally the mom telling the cartel that where exactly they're going, what hotel they're going to. That why would you think Anton would have made it there in time to even be involved in all that? Because at this point in time, he's gone in and he's killed everyone that's been part of him going to get this money.
I think you're talking about towards the end. I'm talking about the first one towards the beginning when he gets in the guy's truck and the guy gets shot. It is the cartel that kills him at the end. But yeah, I was saying that cool-ass gunfight that we do actually see.
But Anton's involved in that. Oh, the one we actually see. But Anton's involved in the end, though, too, because the lock's been blown out.
I don't think that happened right away. I think that he
came back and realized he didn't get to kill.
So we see that set up because Tommy's talking to the other guy, and they're just like, "Oh, you know what it is? It's the kids with their rap music and their fucking nose
but he's
rings."
like, who goes back to the scene? Yes. So you don't think he was there in general, though? You didn't think he was there during the fight the first time?
No.
Then why would he go back to the scene? Just to see that he didn't get Llewelyn?
No, I think he wanted the money. I think the cartel killed him. He probably
didn't get the money
because it's up in the thing and no one knows that except him.
Got it.
So then he decides to go back. And then when he goes and sees the lock is knocked out, I think that's new.
Okay,
I don't think the lock was knocked out before.
Got it.
And that's what makes him pull out his gun, which is also a really cool comparison.
Because you see it in the,
when he sends homie the first time and they go to Llewelyn's place and he's like, should you have your gun out? And he's like, I'm right behind you.
Yeah.
Like, he's not really worried. This time he's like, gotta get his gun. He's actually that worried. So yes, that's what I'm telling you. Every scene is so dense.
Oh gosh,
it's so dense. There's so
hard
much
to pick it apart.
And that's what's cool about having, again, a simple movie that you can really deeply dive into versus having a really grandiose movie that you can kind of barely touch on things.
Right.
I would rather have that or Snowpiercer or something like that where you can just delve into it and really get into it.
For sure.
So Jay Tivo says, a study was done a few years back from psychologists to determine the most realistic psychopath in cinema. After going through hundreds of films depicting murders and killers, they came to the conclusion that Anton Chigurh is the most real depiction of an actual psychopath.
Oh, yeah. Absolutely. So I knew it from jump.
Yep.
By the way,
I knew.
Sorry, guys.
That's a lot of why I want you to watch this. Is because
I was like,
yeah. How do you have anything more to say about kind of Anton?
No, because I think like you touched on. You were able to verbalize a lot of things on how I felt about Anton that I couldn't. Essentially, not like him seeing himself almost not as a deity per se, but
almost like an avatar of a deity.
Exactly. Like he thinks. I don't think he necessarily doesn't think he's truly a man, but I do think he thinks he's a step above. He's a demigod, essentially. You know what I mean? Like he's not quite a god, but it was like right there in himself. But like how you worded it was just like. The profiling from jump, I loved how quickly, if you know anything about it, getting my master's in criminology. But anyway, with that being said, if you know anything about it, it's just like the factors that they throw in there, or not factors, but the telltale signs that are there for you to read if you're going to pick up on it anyway. Because, I mean, he could just be a hitman. But like I said, but then he comes with like almost a shadow self in Woody Harrelson where he's the hitman, he's running on his own set of rules, and I think how it's already established is really well done. But then you also have it confirmed coming from Woody Harrelson too, so I think that it honestly it's just very well done. Like him going up and just boldly just strangling the deputy from jump, because also that's a calculated move because why, if you can so easily overpower this man, why'd you let him pick you up in the first place?
Right.
If it's not about the chase, if it's not about the hunt, why was
Well,
why were you so easily gotten the car? Because you look at the comparison, he had to have gone peacefully. There was no, he was not trying to fight in any way, shape, or form. You wanted to go do that, switch vehicles, and then go about your day. You had a plan and a goal behind it, and it was so methodical, and it was so obvious. You know what I mean? So I think it's really well. I think his character is very well established and very well done.
I like how you said with his demigod thing. It's also like he's got telltale delusions of grandeur.
Yeah, absolutely.
And Carson sees that and tries to explain it to him. You know, it's like, you think of yourself as, again, like I said, I like the term force of nature. Because like I said, I think he thinks of himself as like the Grim Reaper. It's like the coin thing. It's like this coin has traveled for 20 years to get right here, right now to do this. And I got here the same way the coin did. So I'm here to kill you. And there was like it's in the stars kind of thing. And it's him almost making this like, counter agency argument, which Carla Jean then I think rebuttals with like, no, it's your free will. You're choosing to do this, and you could just leave right now.
You have a choice.
You promised my husband you'd kill me. That doesn't make any sense. It's like
he's already dead.
So, it's good.
Well, it's the principle, because yet again, that's his code of morals. He's like, if I give my word that I'm going to do something, I have to do it per se.
Which again, though, I still think he's full of crap on, because then it's like in the beginning he's working on trying to recover the money for them, but I think at some point he switches and decides that he just wants to take the money himself. And when what's his face, Root hires Carson, it's like, he basically has gone rogue. We don't know what to do with this guy anymore. So it's like, oh, where's your big moral fucking, do the thing you're supposed to do? Where'd that all go now, Mr. Want the money for myself? And again, that's where I think, again, it reminds us like he's more human. Even that money is tempting for even this person who thinks he's the devil. You know? So it's like, it's for sure. Just good. Coen brothers are just on another level, dude. That's the kind of stuff where it gets into like that art area where I feel like you want to interpret. Lots of movies, it's like they're just presenting something to you and you go, okay, great, that's what it was. But like these are the ones where you're like, what does this mean?
Oh, 100%. Yeah.
You can disagree with people and be like, yeah, but you have a point too. And like, it doesn't feel like there's just one way to think of it. It's sick. I love the Coen brothers. I can't wait to do more of their stuff. They're so good. Brownsy1 is saying that apparently the title comes from the William Butler Yeats poem, Sailing to Byzantium. So it's cool that actually is a reference. And the opening line is, "That is no country for old men." Considering the film revolves around Tommy Lee Jones's character, it makes sense that the poem was an inspiration. A lot of the sheriff's introspections are similar to the themes running through the poem.
That's cool.
Which I think as well, because the book was written by Cormac McCarthy, and he has a very dark sense of the world. And I think that the movie is almost a like meta meditation on himself as like through the main character of Tommy.
Wow, okay,
and I feel like it's kind of his feelings about he thinks like this, like, and so it's almost
interesting.
It's almost like a lashback to like his own, because even if you are a nihilist and you have this idea that like, everyone's perceptions are all effed up, that also includes your own, and you realize that your perceptions are still just a byproduct of your experiences and your mood and tone and stuff like that. So I don't know if you know this, but Sam Peep says Llewelyn is a Welsh name, and his wife in the film has a very thick Scottish accent. She did a really good Southern accent. Did you catch that she wasn't American?
Not one bit.
That's cool. That's really cool. I'm a fan of hers already. She was in Trainspotting.
Okay.
And she also is in Nanny McPhee as the younger nanny, I think, or not nanny, but like a housemaid or something like that. But yeah, she's got like a thick Scottish accent. So it was a good accent.
Well, Southern accents are nothing but a extended interpretation of a British accent.
Certain ones, yeah, for sure.
That's how it transfers over, but
it's also an easy one to do a cartoon character version of. Yeah. And so I think she really pulled it off. I also really like their relationship a lot. It obviously is very kind of like prototypical of like a 1980 kind of a male dominated relationship.
Yeah.
But I think you can tell that there's tenderness between them.
Oh, absolutely.
They're so playful with each other, which I like. And then even when he does leave and come back, he does tell her what's going on.
Right.
But that's another thing I really like as well. Is like, meeting Anton, we initially set up his kick the dog moment, so we know he's bad by him killing the guy. He's like, need you pull over, sir. Which there's also something interesting to be said for that too. Or never mind, that's he kills the cop first.
He kills the cop first,
yeah,
and then he pulls the car. He has the cop car, pulls him over.
Yeah, because that's how he pulls him over.
Hits him with the air gun.
Well, what I was gonna say about the air gun thing that I like about it is that it kind of shows two people's like compliance to authority, and he doesn't understand, and everything about this feels wrong, and it gets him all the way to getting killed. And I just think that's really interesting, kind of a little commentary there. But with Llewelyn, our save the cat moment is he talks to the Mexican guy, and he can't let that go.
And he went back to the wife. But that's the also thing why I thought he was maybe the sheriff in the beginning too, because like when I realized that he's just gone back and it's just been like, oh, I'm just keeping this money. I'm not calling it anything else. I was like still kind of taken aback, and I was like, wait, what? Because I hadn't followed it that way in my brain, because he was so efficient at the tracking. You would think he would come from law or something like that. You know what I mean? Like I thought maybe that's what the whole matter was. Like I got out of it because the monologue is so like you had said. It's just like so many parts of this movie open to interpretation. Yeah. So when you hear that first, it's like, oh, he's quit because he's, you know what I mean? And then when it breaks out, and then you realize, no, he just did it for the money. He's like, crap, I'm about to do something real stupid. I'm going to go take this cat some water.
I could absolutely have seen me interpreting it that way.
Yes.
I didn't. Like, I just recognized Tommy's voice so heavily.
Oh, I didn't at first, and I loved Tommy Lee Jones.
It's hard to take its measure.
And I you think I would Men in Black is like one of my top favorite movies of all time.
Yeah, same voice.
You know, I love it.
But having said that, I could imagine a third person between the two of us who maybe thought that Tommy was like old Llewelyn maybe or something.
Yeah.
And it was like a monologue on back in the day. So now it takes place in 2007.
So that's kind of how I felt about it too. I thought, I don't know.
Yeah, there's
a lot, man.
Tony Coens do. They just make other stuff.
They make you think. They make you think pretty heavily.
So Mad Mardigan. So Josh Brolin actually broke his shoulder in a motorcycle accident a couple weeks before filming was to begin, which normally would be like a massive issue on the scene. He lied to the Coen brothers about the injury, and they stated that they were only too happy to believe him and ignore how much pain he was in. As it turns out, though, Brolin's character shot in the same shoulder at the beginning of the movie, and so it almost enhances his performance because he has to do less acting. He's just actually hurt. Brolin recalls the moment he was thrown from his motorcycle in an interview. I'm flying over this car, and I'm really getting some air, and I remember thinking, fucking shit, I really wanted to work with the Coens.
That's crazy.
That's so he's awesome. He was doing some interviews talking about how they kind of saved his career. So did you ever see the Goonies back in the day?
Yeah, I saw Nope. I haven't seen the Goonies the whole way through. I know what the Goonies are. I've never seen the Goonies.
He's the oldest kid in the Goonies.
Oh, okay.
And he said that really it typecasted the hell out of him. He just could not shake the Goonies thing. And the Coen brothers really gave him like a second lease on life by trusting him to be in this big, Coen brothers movie. When at the time, like, he just didn't have any, like, name, I don't know, quality. Tommy Lee Jones probably would have been the only guy at the time. Like, same thing with the guy who plays Anton Chigurh. That is Javier Bardem.
Okay.
At the same time, they both would have been kind of like, no one really knows who these guys are. Now both of them are pretty huge. I mean, Javier went on to go do Watchmen. And freaking Josh Brolin's been, like, just flopping around between, like, Deadpool and then, like, Dune and then freaking Thanos and, like, the MCU. Like, it's crazy. All of that probably doesn't happen if the Coens don't kind of get his name recognition up, So I think that's really cool. It's a similar thing with Tarantino with some of the other people he's worked with.
Right. But Old Country for No Men, that was, like, a big... Because I know the name of the movie. I know nothing about the movie, but it was a big, like, Academy-nominated movie, wasn't it?
Won Best Picture.
Okay, it did win Best Picture. Okay. So that's why the name is familiar and in the, Zygote, I guess. Zygotes, I guess. Oh, God.
You're close.
One's a travel book.
No, it's true. It's not the biggest, like, it's not Top Gun.
No.
But it did make like $140 million, I think, off of a very humble budget. And it kind of hit all the marks where it was like big enough, did well in box office, is a fun movie that people liked, although there were a lot of complaints about the ending, and then also won Best Picture. You get a lot of years where a movie will be like, it made like no money, no one really saw it, but it's an incredibly made film, but it's a very kind of like Academy film, like a master, where like I'll watch it and I very much so appreciate it, but like I wouldn't invite all my friends to go see it, where like I think anybody could really watch this movie because it's just so entertaining.
Oh, absolutely, yeah.
Although I do hear some people, someone was like, oh, Warner, it's a snooze fest. I'm like, if you're bored during that movie, maybe movies aren't for you.
I feel like also, like, if you're bored during that movie, like, something's going over your head.
Probably.
You're missing something.
Yeah, probably, right.
I hate to say it, but that's the only way, because, like, for me, another driving factor of why I wanted to know more about Antoine. You know what I mean? Right. It's just, like, back to, like, my Predator review. It was like, I just wanted more backstory. Excuse me, I'm sorry. I just wanted more backstory, and so I was paying attention to every little detail that was going into it, because I wanted more. You know what I mean? Because the character interested me. So I feel like if you're genuinely bored during this movie, then you're missing something.
And there are lots of details to pick up on to see them pay it off in the movie. So you kind of need to pay attention.
That's why I think they do keep the like you said. Why they keep it so simple storyline wise, because you're looking for those little Easter eggs.
So you can go like deep, not wide.
Yeah.
And they had that as well with like, you know, you have to pay attention to understand how the transponder finding the money thing is. If you're not paying attention, be like, how did he find them? And then you have like the Mexicans are already there, the cartel guys are already there. Yeah. And then Llewelyn, what he's working on, because again, almost no one ever explains their plan.
Okay.
You just see the plan.
Yeah. So that time when I'm paying it, I'm watching it. And I get to the point where he's at the different hotel at this point now. If someone shows up, give me a call. Yes. I'm like, bro, how are you not getting it's the case? The case is being tracked. How are you not on it? So when he wakes up out of his dead sleep, it's like, because I'm literally talking, I was like, maybe he thinks there's another way they could have tracked him. And then when literally I say maybe he thinks there's another way they could track in the movie, he says something, goes, that doesn't make any sense. Yeah, and he gets in, and I was like, whoa, like that was such a win for my brain. I was like, maybe he thinks there's a different way. Like, you have to know it's the case. It just don't make no sense. And I was like, yes, I'm happy to go on this ride with you, bro. Like,
no, I love that too.
It was so good.
It's similar to the scene with the Mexican as well.
Yeah.
He's just like, all right, you know, it's like, what are you doing? He's like, something dumber than hell.
Well, yeah.
And another line that's just another really good. The movie's just filled with great lines. Most of them are Tommy Lee Jones. He's got incredible, like just line oneers. But I love the, you know, tell mom I love her, and she's like, Llewelyn, your mom's dead. Tell her myself.
So I'll tell her myself.
Yeah, boy. No, it is so good, and that's what's fun. It is fun to watch him be good and be capable. And that's why it feels so weird that we don't get the shootout. But it's like over the years, I've really softened on that because I'm like, not softened, I actually appreciate it because it's like, I know what that is. I've seen that, you know? So it's like, I'm so glad that it gave me something else and it trusted me to be able to handle something else. And I think that the power of, instead of going for a huge shootout, we instead get this very quiet moment with just Tommy Lee Jones talking to his wife about his dreams with his dad. It's just awesome, dude. Like, they're just, and that's why they're not me.
I thought it was well, right.
Like, I would wuss out and be like, okay, here's the big gunfight at the end. And like what would be satisfying after all of that, really? You know,
That wouldn't have been, though.
I have said, well, that's what I mean. Like, what version of that would be satisfying? No. If it was redone and you did have to give it a more kind of ending where they all do connect, because they really don't, which is understandable. They pretty much rarely ever actually connect. Anton and Llewelyn kind of do at one point. Yeah. And the rest of the movies, they're all pretty much kind of separate. And also the set order that things are set in stay the same the whole time, which again, nihilism, like nothing even changes. Llewelyn is in the lead. He's a step ahead of everybody. The cartel's on his heels. Anton's just behind them. And then Tommy Lee Jones is pulling it in from the rear. And at the end of the movie, that's exactly how it stayed. It was like Llewelyn gets killed by the cartel. Anton shows up after go grab the money, and Tommy is still trying to figure out what the hell happened. Right. That is so crazy to me that, like, pretty much, again, like, just no agency, nothing really. It's just, the movie just themes-wise, so interesting. But if I had to redo it, one way you could have done it would have been Anton kills Llewelyn, and then Tommy kills Anton. If you wanted a more traditional Hollywood ending.
That's how you would anticipate it to go.
Rather than, if Llewelyn just kills Anton, then you kind of feel like, oh, well, that's just what I was waiting for.
Yeah, that's like, it's not the twist. Boring. It's not really, it's not thought-provoking. It's not, so, like, just how they do it in general.
So a level up, wild. I think, would be that, okay, Tommy finally catches up and does something.
I definitely, like, thought they were going to have, like, a face-to-face moment instead of him just picking the different room, the other room, versus the room where he actually was just sitting in the corner. I thought that was really well done, too. And he just, like, saw it, realized, and was like, okay, I'm gonna head out now.
That guy driving him, he's like, I don't want to get in some jackpot. He's like, you're already in a jackpot.
Yeah, like, you're already
No, it's just, I highly recommend it. Everyone freaking, you know, you should have seen it if you're watching this review. But I just think the movie is killer. It's probably... It might be my favorite Coen Brothers movie. I'll have to think about that more. But the thing about the Coens,
I have no base.
Well, you have...
I have Fargo. I really enjoyed Fargo.
And that's what
but that was also a totally different... temperature of a movie. You know what I mean? Like, you know that's a dark comedy. You know what I mean? Like, it's your... Like, it's more... It's not... It's also still thought-provoking because of all the things that go down. You know what I mean? It's definitely still
And I think theme-wise is awesome. I think the character work is awesome.
It's just a different feeling going into it.
It is. And it's also
so I wouldn't want to compare them.
It's also not an adaptation.
Exactly.
All right, guys. Well, that was Coen Brothers, No Country for Old Men. Thanks for hanging out with us, and we'll catch you later.
Bye. Guys.